Welcome to our presentation for Roll Initiative. It's a group project for Comp 3013. We'll move on and introduce our team members. So I'm Zach, I'm the product owner, which meant I was in charge of keeping everyone on track with our goals, making sure we achieved what we wanted to, meetings and all the such, and I was basically in charge of keeping everyone organised.
Hi, I'm Matt. I was a Scrum Master. It was my job to make sure everyone knew what they were doing on a weekly basis and to populate the development board.
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm the tech lead. I'm in charge of making sure the GitHub is being used and updated and used correctly. I'm also making sure everyone is using the repo conventions of how to comment and make sure everyone can understand what you've updated. I'm also in charge of controlling the team website and the itch.io page.
Product breakdown, what we intended to develop. So this is the outline of our objectives that we wanted, set ourselves at the start of the module to decide what we wanted to come out with at the end. So at its core, we were going to make a bullet hell style of game, which is basically lots of projectiles, lots of enemies, and you have to play as to the best to survive. But we wanted to add a spin on this by making it first person, which not many of them are. Some of them are, but it was a good challenge and something different that we wanted to try. Another thing that we wanted to include and develop was procedure generation. None of us had ever attempted anything like this before in this style, and it was a good challenge, and it brought a lot of complexity to the game that we wanted. And obviously, bullet hell and first-person shooters, they have to have a completely polished gameplay. UX is very important in this sort of genre. You have to have the minimum amount of UI, but they have to see everything they need at all the times. It can't be too cluttered.
Overall, we hit all of our MVP goals. We also hit a few extended ones as well, and we're very happy with it. At the end of the day, we did all the bullet hell gameplay, so this included the procedural generation for the terrain and enemies and other items such as health packs. They also generate with complexity. After you complete a level, it redoes and gets slightly harder and continues on. We polished the UX, which I do, to make it the best as possible.
For our agreed technologies and objectives, we're using Unity. It's the main focus of what we all know, and it is great because we all had lots of experience with it. And tied with Unity is obviously C#, and this is a language that we've all used extensively for years at this point, and we're very comfortable with. For controls, we decided to go with keyboard and mouse because all of us use computers and it's easier to build around what we know. We're all very avid gamers, so we all know the standard keyboard layouts, and it's easy to set up and map from what we know. As for objectives, it has to be detailed. You have to make sure that when we set out our objectives, we have to meet them. They have to be detailed enough that we can formulate an idea from it. They have to be quantitative, which means that when we compare to them from user tests and the such, it's easy to relate on certain points and find out where we went wrong, where we went right. It has to be actionable. We have to actually feasibly able to do it in the time that we've allotted ourselves inside the scope. And it has to, again, relate back to the original pitch. We can't go too off a scope, because if we leave too far from our original ideas, it won't end up being what we want and what we can possibly do in the time.
Our Agile development cycle consisted of basic ideas that we had that we wanted to put in the game. We then took these ideas and added them to the project backlog, where they were fully fleshed out during our meetings. Once we'd fully fleshed out an idea, it was added to a sprint. Assuming it was completed on time, each sprint was then tested to make sure the features worked correctly. Our Agile Development Board was the main tool that we used to make sure all the tasks were completed on time. In our bi-weekly meetings, we reviewed the progress we'd made and supported team members who'd maybe fallen behind on certain features. If a feature was deemed too large, it was broken up into smaller features in different sprints to separate the workload.
Meetings, due to COVID and lockdowns, it was difficult to get people to meet at specific times, especially after the lectures and meetings had ended, because we were piggybacking off of lectures. We had an allotted slot on the Thursdays where we could have a 2-hour slot meeting with our lecturer, and we would do our meetings then, because then it meant we could talk to him as well as doing our other stuff. But obviously after COVID and that ended, everyone was going home, and it was much more awkward for people to meet up and do meetings. So we kept using Discord, which is similar to Teams. We were using it alongside instead of meetings. We'd have meetings occasionally, but it was much more infrequently. And we generally just use it to chat and make sure if anyone did any help.
So throughout the project, we used version control, we used GitHub. We all have it on our computer, so it's very easy to use. We're all familiar with it. We made sure we committed before every major update we did to the game. We also had different branches for when we first started, for procedure generation, for the user experience, and that, to make sure we could focus on our own sections without overlapping when there was the big main features that were being changed. As you can all see by the chart below, it did slow down during the Christmas break when we all had to move back for COVID and that. This was a bit of a hectic time moving around, and some of us did not have the right equipment to do the job, so it was harder to do it during these time periods, but as you can see before and after, it's definitely been at a steady rate of commits. We also used coding standards. We followed Microsoft's .NET framework coding conventions mainly. All coding changes were previewed and reviewed before being merged. So as we use different branches for procedure generation, they were all checked before merge, making sure we're not deleting other people's work, and to make sure that it was working with each other functionally. The most common coding standard rules are posted in the README file, so we didn't have to find the Microsoft website for easy access.
So for our user testing, we had 2 build demos, a functional test and a usability test. They were both uploaded to itch.io and shared with a group of students in the same module as us to get feedback. So we linked the itch page, and then on the itch page there was a Google form that they had to fill out with multiple questions. And I also gave a little bit of background on the project as well. From these user tests, we had valuable information from both of them. Functional was much more for core mechanics, movement, cameras, all that stuff. And from the usability one, it was much more on the UX side of things. So how did gunplay feel? How was the movement? Did people enjoy what it was doing? Would they change anything? Was the UI fine? This helped made us informed decisions about the project going through the development, so it kept us on track and made sure we were going in the right direction. Both of them also helped expose bugs and issues that might have otherwise gone unnoticed that arose during tests, because having more people test your game, higher chance of bugs coming up. And again, mentioned for the second one, it provided insight on the user experience of the game and helped us better grasp the concept.
Throughout the game, multiple assets were created. These were mainly using the neon and pixel type theme, so a lot of squares, polys, that kind of stuff. All of the images for the user interfaces were all custom made, so they all stay in the same theme. A lot of them are animated, so the buttons have glow or the logos has glow. They are also animated from Photoshop as well, so they have multiple different types of animation. It's a spin on the art style that everyone knows, the pixel retro type feel, and the neon, just everyone likes neon, so why wouldn't you? It's quite aesthetically pleasing. It's all very OCD proof kind of, where it's all squares, it's all nothing's sideways almost. We also have sound effects for shoot-ins, taking damage, everything basically, and we've also got assets that tailor the theme that we wanted to create. So our final product, we are very happy with it. It has a lot of animations, it sticks with the theme overall. The asset's very good. As you can see by the menus in the screenshots, there is the pink neon theme with the blue neon theme. You can't see as it's a still image, but the background does fall down to make the effect of the neon and like maybe night sky rain type thing. So it has a lot of those feels around, and everything is tailored to that neon feel.
Obviously, a main part of our project was the procedure generation. Very happy with that came out. So we went through multiple iterations. The first one, we were just going to have procedure generated cover, and then going on through the development, we realised that we could maybe go into terrain as well to add a bit more variation to the levels. So we ended up implementing that as well, and we're very happy with the result. On top of that as well, we're also procedure generating enemies and health packs, so it's all random depending on the level. It procedure generates the terrain at different heights as well, so as each level is near enough completely different to the last, because there's a very low chance you'll encounter the same map twice. For reflection, things we did well in development, we did in hindsight we did a pretty good job staying in scope throughout the whole course of the development. We never really strayed going for too many out of reach ideas. The only thing that maybe could have pushed on that a bit was the procedure generation, which is why it took a bit longer to get going than we hoped. But that's because we went through from version 1 to version 2 and we completely changed how we were going to procedure generate the terrain. We set to good standards throughout. Coding never went too wild. We kept regular meetings while we could, apart from the lockdown issues, but you know, that's something that was out of our control. Even then, we kept communication with the teams through Discord. There was never really much time when we weren't talking or talking about issues or anything that anyone encountered. And it's a solid concept. At its core, it's quite easily expandable, and you can easily add extra features to it if you want, or refine some of the texture and models. You can do quite a lot with it. It's a good core concept. Things we could have done better, however. What we could have done better is we could have kept the weekly meetings going on throughout the holidays. Like I mentioned before, this was due to the lockdown and everyone was moving home and all the issues that arose with that. But like I said, we kept using Discord, but our meetings lacked. So we were in communication, but we weren't having regular meetings every week. And that, in turn, contributed to the lack of commits over that period. Another thing we could have done is could have made more time for testing to allow for proper comparisons between data changes. It would have mean that our tests were more useful than they were, and we could have got a lot. Although the information we got was very useful, it could have been so much better.
Despite these circumstances, we were able to keep to our sprints relatively well, and it didn't cause too much of a disruption to our workflow.
That's it for our overall presentation. Thank you for watching.